Hey everyone, I am so excited. Today is the day that you start baking with Joy. Now that she's completely rehydrated and you have enough to do your first bake. So I'm going to show you exactly what that process looks like. The first thing that you're going to do is make sure that Joy is fed and bubbly. So at least 4 hours in advance, you're going to want to feed Joy, let her grow, and you're going to use her while she's at her peak. The other thing that you can do is if she's already bubbly is you can feed her the night before you're going to start this and put her in the fridge. Take her out in the morning, let her warm up, and she's going to get nice and bubbly, and you can use that. So this is how I bake all of my bread. I'm literally showing you my method that I've come up with over years of trying a bunch of different methods and finally figuring out what works best for me. You'd be very surprised at how forgiving sourdough is. I always like to start with pouring the water in first. So for this particular recipe, we're going to do 275 grams of water. And I really do highly recommend a scale for much more accurate measurement. So 275 grams, here we come. Okay, it went up to 279, and I'm fine with that. That's not a lot in water weight, so we're gonna stick to it right there. Don't be worried if you go over a little tiny bit. Here's my sourdough starter. Look at all those big bubbles. Let me show you that. She's ready. Okay, so you're gonna hit tare. That's gonna bring you back to 0 on the scale, and we're gonna go ahead with our 150 grams of sourdough starter. Little at a time. Well, that was super close. That's 153 grams, and we're gonna go with that. So you see how it's just floating on top of the water like that? It moves freely and it's floating around. That's what you want to see with your starter. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and hit tare again on that, and we're gonna add our salt. If you are using coarse kosher salt or coarse sea salt, you're putting in 12 grams of salt. If you're using fine salt, we're gonna do 2/3 of that amount. So you're gonna put 8 grams of fine salt in, okay? It doesn't weigh as much, so you're gonna get more, and you don't wanna make it too salty. And this is where we're gonna mix it up. I'm gonna shut my scale off so that I don't confuse it. And we're gonna just get everything incorporated here. So you just wanna break up your starter and get it mixed up a bit with your water and your salt. And it doesn't have to be dissolved into it or anything crazy like that. Okay, so then we end up with like a milky water concoction here. And that's what we're looking for. I do enjoy the Dutch whisk, not gonna lie. You can mix it with anything that you want. But I do enjoy the Dutch whisk. Treat yourself to one. Got mine on Amazon. Now for our flour. So now you're going to turn your scale back on. Make sure your scale is on. We're on grams. We want 450 grams of King Arthur all-purpose flour is what I use. Different flours are going to absorb water and stuff in a different way. So you can play around with that if you need to, but I prefer King Arthur all-purpose flour. That's what I do all of my baking with. Okay, so 450 grams. Again, we're going to go slowly but surely. 457, I'm going to take out a little bit because I don't want it to be too heavy. I'm going to take out right to where we get to 450. So there we go. You can do all of this in your stand mixer with a dough hook, and I've done it. But when I started, I always used my hands, and I just prefer to get my hands in there. So let's get our hands dirty together. So I just kind of like start going around the edges to incorporate the water. Okay, and once it starts coming together a bit, we can get both our hands in there and just sort of smush it all together. You want to get all that flour away from the sides and incorporate it into your dough. Now, I will say where sourdough is concerned is weather will make a difference. So the time of year makes a difference for how your sourdough is going to act. And the conditions outside. If it's super humid out, you might get a much wetter mixture. And if it's super cold, it might be a much drier mixture. Won't rise as quickly because it's chilly, stuff like that. No reason to overcomplicate this whatsoever. I mean, we are just putting together right now sourdough starter, water, salt, and flour. Guys, that's not hard to do. I typically like to sort of knead it around for about 3 minutes or so. And honestly, I'm just playing with it, guys. This is called sourdough therapy. It really does work. All right, this is looking absolutely beautiful. She's really stretchy. She's super pretty. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash and show you a great trick. So once you have your rough dough mix, you're going to take your 2-ounce condiment cup and you're going to add 40 grams of your rough dough to it. If you don't have a condiment cup right now, that's okay. I am going to tell you the amount of time that it took for this to proof, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. You can order these plastic ones on Amazon, and I highly recommend it. This has changed everything for me as far as knowing when my dough is ready to be shaped and put in the refrigerator, and I know it's going to help you a lot. So I'm going to stick that on my scale, hit tare, and I'm going to add 40 grams of my rough dough. So I'm just going to push it down a little bit. And I really like to use saran wrap with this so that I can tell when it's really starting to puff up. And then I'm going to add some olive oil just to the top of my dough, just so that it doesn't dry out. And just rub that around. It's just a little bit of olive oil. You can use any kind that you like. And then you're going to take your condiment cup and you're going to stick it right in the same environment as your dough. Simple as that. Then what I like to do is take a wet tea towel and just put it right over the top. Now, we're gonna let this sit for 30 minutes and we're gonna do our first set of stretch and fold. Here we are, 30 minutes later, and it's time for us to do our first set of stretch and folds. So you're just gonna uncover your bowl of dough, take out your little condiment cup. For stretch and folds, that's literally exactly what we're gonna do. You're going to just grab one side, stretch it up, fold it over, turn. Stretch it up, fold it over, turn. Stretch it up, fold it over, turn. And each of these turns is a quarter turn, so that we're just gonna do this literally 4 times. Up, over. Going to go ahead and put a little bit more olive oil on top, rub that around. Just don't want our dough to dry out. Stick your little condiment cup in there if you have one. Otherwise, you're gonna throw your tea towel on. So I will set the timer for 30 more minutes. I'm just gonna show you what it looks like at that time, and I'll see you in 30. Okay, so went ahead and I let this go for an additional hour, actually. So I did not do my stretch and fold 30 minutes later. I'm doing it an hour later, and that's okay. So we're gonna go ahead and stretch and fold. Same thing, 4 stretch and folds. The dough is really nice and soft. And I'm gonna hit it with some olive oil again, but I'm gonna rub around over the top. Again, we wanna keep it from drying out. Now, I'm not gonna do any more stretch and folds. I need to move on to some other things. And like I said earlier, that's okay. You want this to basically double in size, and this can take a long time. Now, if you did do your condiment cup, it's gonna be easier to keep track, but you see in there, I mean, really not much is happening. Same thing is happening in here as is happening right here. There's a little bit of puffiness, but we're nowhere near proofed, okay? Now for proofing, the warmer the environment, the better. You can proof your entire bowl inside your oven with the light on. Don't turn the oven on, lowest setting or anything. Just put it in the oven with the light on just to give this kind of a warmer environment. I'm gonna check back in about 3 hours. Okay, so here we are, 5 hours later. I covered this up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now it's 8 o'clock at night. As you can see, the difference in my cup now, that the dough is obviously rising, which is awesome, but it's not at the point where it's ready to be shaped as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna put her back in the oven with the light on for another 1.5 hours before I go ahead and do shaping and preparing her to go in the fridge overnight. So I'm going to dampen it again. I'm going to throw it over the top, and I'm going to place the bowl back in the oven with the light on, and I'll see you guys back in an hour and a half or so. It ended up being 2 hours later. I put her back into the oven with the light on at 8 p.m. Now it's 10 p.m. And we're gonna be ready now to shape our loaf and get her ready to go in to the refrigerator for her cold proof. And I want you to see what this looks like. See how nice and puffy and bubbly she is? There's bubbles here. That's what we're looking for. In the condiment cup, we've got the same thing going on, but I want you to see these gluten strands when you pull up here, okay? This is how you see that she's ready. Just like that, okay? She's nice and ready. And just add that to your loaf. So we're just going to go ahead and turn her out onto the counter. I typically don't put any flour down. If she's really sticky, that'll be a whole nother thing, but okay. Gorgeous. I kind of gently just pull her out into a large rectangle, just like that. And you know, if you wanted to, you really could split her in half and do 2 smaller loaves. That's what I typically do because I'm just one person. And if you did that, you're just literally gonna weigh out 2 equal portions and do exactly what I'm doing here and just put it in 2 different bannetons or bowls or whatever. So, and I'm gonna show that to you as well. Once you have her out into her rectangle, you're going to go ahead and take one side and fold it into the center, just like that. And then you're gonna take the other side, you're gonna fold it all the way over. Like that, okay? So you see that seam right there? And I typically just kind of pinch the seam together. And then you're going to roll up from the bottom. And here is where we start our pushes and our pulls. So this is just creating tension. Do not let this intimidate you at all. This is the relaxing, therapeutic part for me anyway. Cupping your hands like this, you're gonna pull her towards you and put her back, and you're sort of turning her at the same time. You're gonna pull towards you and turn. So it's almost like little quarter turns, maybe not even quite as much. And all we're doing is creating tension here and incorporating all of her into this ball. So you can pull and turn her, and pull and turn her, about a quarter turn. See some bubbles popping up on her. That's always nice. She's a really nice soft dough. Okay, that's it. She looks really, really beautiful. If you don't have bannetons right now, that's fine. I actually used a strainer the first time that I did this with a tea towel in the bottom. So if you have just a bowl, a strainer, anything, bowl, strainer, stick a little towel in there, a tea towel, and then you're just going to add some flour and rub it around in here, just like I'm about to do with the banneton. And you're gonna put her in here and do the same exact thing that I'm about to do in this banneton, okay? So trust me, you've already got what you need. You don't need anything fancy. If you don't have it right now, no worries. Just like with the condiment cup, no worries. You can see how much she grew in that bowl. All right, so now we do wanna make sure that we season our banneton material here nice and well. So we're just going to do that with some flour. So you're gonna drop it in there, you're gonna rub it around. You're gonna rub it around the sides, you're gonna rub it up and down the sides. You just want a decent amount of flour in here so that your dough doesn't stick. And then you would do the same thing to your tea towel. You're gonna take your loaf of bread and she's gonna go in the banneton upside down, okay? And pick her up, flip her over, and put her upside down just like that. Then you can sort of pinch together the seam down the center if you want to. I like to just make sure she's nice and comfy in there. All right, just like that. And that's literally all that we're going to do now. So now, just to make sure she doesn't dry out, I just use good old Walmart or Publix or Kroger, whatever, good old plastic shopping bag. Stick her in, and I tie it up just like that. And then I like to put it in a second one with the tie side going in, because I just want to keep air out so it doesn't dry out. And wrap her up just like that. And now the bowl is going to go into the refrigerator overnight, and we'll check her in the morning and see if she's ready to bake with, and she should be. Good morning. Time to check our loaves. So it is 10 a.m. here. She went into the fridge last night, probably around 10:30, I'm gonna say. So we're almost at 12 hours later, and we're gonna see what she's looking like. And that's a normal amount of time to proof. Okay. So look at her. She obviously continued proofing in the refrigerator. She's puffy. She's really, really beautiful. And we want to get that score on her while she's cold. That being said, your oven is going to be preheating while you're doing this. Set it to 450 degrees. I have a cake pan on the bottom shelf of my oven, and I put water in it, probably about halfway, to create some steam. I'm also going to use a Dutch oven this time, and that's a very traditional way to bake the bread, but I do have a video also on the same page of my open baking, and you're more than welcome to do that as well if you don't have a Dutch oven. That's how I bake most often. So you want your parchment paper to be long enough where it's going to come up the sides of the Dutch oven so that you can pick your loaf up that way without getting burned. Okay, so we're going to turn around right in the middle and just take your banneton off the top. Look how gorgeous she is. I prefer this little lame here. This is also a super common one that I did use for a while. Not my favorite one to use. And that's probably just user error on my part, but this is a nice straight razor and I enjoy it. So I'm gonna do something very, very simple here, and we are gonna go from one side of the loaf, and you wanna get all the way from the bottom. And you're just gonna come across all the way down to the other side. Okay, that's a beautiful, and you want it to be decently deep. I'm gonna do that, and that's the only score that I'm going to do. I do want to do a pretty design on here too, and you're more than welcome to do that. This is the first time I'm doing this little swirl here, because I don't normally play with my bread like this. Exciting moment. The oven is ready, and here's how we're gonna go ahead and bake our beautiful loaf. Here's our hot Dutch oven. Do not touch anything without your gloves. We're just gonna go ahead and lift our loaf up. We're gonna place her down in there just like that. We're going to get the lid back on, and we're gonna pop her in the oven for 30 minutes covered, just like this. So our 30-minute timer just went off, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab the Dutch oven and show you what is happening in there. All you are gonna do at this point is remove the lid and set your timer for 10 more minutes, just so that she can brown up. Wow, look at that loaf of bread. That is so gorgeous. Okay, so you're just gonna put your lid aside, and you are going to pop this back in the oven for 10 minutes or until the internal temperature reaches 205 degrees. So I popped her back in. I'm gonna start at 5 minutes and check on her and check her internal temperature. And if she needs more time, we'll let her keep going until she's ready. Okay, so I know I said until it reaches 205, but honestly, anywhere between 203 and 207 is perfect. So she's at 203. I removed her. I like her doneness, and I'm going to show you what we've got here. And first, I want you to look at that bottom. There's no burnt bottom there, and that is due to the cake pan and the steam. So here she is. She's a beauty. She's gigantic also. I never make bread this big. Let her cool all the way. It's going to be hard for you to do. I know you want to tear into her, but let her cool before you cut into her, or she's going to be like stodgy in the middle, and you don't want that. So give her about an hour, cut her open, and enjoy. Again, super, super proud of you guys. Congratulations on your first loaf. I would love if you would post your first bake on any of the socials that you follow me on, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, and tag me. I want people to see how easy this process is when they do it with joy. So congratulations on your first step to your journey to joy.